Hello, I want to give you a nice example of agroforestry, which unfortunately is a very famous system, but a disappearing system. It's suffering a lot. I'm in Corsica, and Corsica is known for its chestnut orchards. 150 years ago, there was a thriving population in this region that's called Castagniccia, which means chestnut orchard in French. And basically almost the entire valley that you see over there and the next 3 or 4 valleys, they consist of chestnut orchards almost everywhere, wherever possible. People they used chestnuts for everything. It was a staple food. They made kind of polenta, they made pancakes, no, not really pancakes, but they made like, yeah, they mixed flour with water, and they used it as a staple food. They even made bread from chestnut flour, because most of the well, basically all the chestnuts here, they were either given to the animals as animal feed, or they were transformed into chestnut flour, which was used for human consumption. And this is really remarkable because it's one of the rare examples I know of, and I think that exist, where a perennial food, a perennial crop, I should say, a tree crop, was able to sustain a civilization. Nowadays, most of our staple crops, they are annual crops like potatoes, cereals like wheat, and they are destroying our our ecology, because to grow them, we grow them in huge monocultures. We have to um, to turn to we have to basically do lots of different things in order to grow them. We have to fertilize them. We have to turn the soil. We often use pesticides, etc. And this was not the case at all with this system. It was really a very regenerative system. Unfortunately, since people abandoned basically the mountainous areas um, in the early 1900s, especially, most of those chestnut orchards got abandoned. And chestnut orchards, they actually require some management in order to survive, at least in this context, because it's a tree that does occur here naturally, but in recent years there have been lots of different problems. There are two diseases that came from Asia, blight and Phytophthora, or ink disease in English, that have ruined many orchards. And then there's the oriental gall wasp, a small insect that basically um, lays its eggs in the buds of the trees, which which makes the tree lose a lot of photosynthetic surface. And on top of that, there's been a lot of drought in the last 2 years here in the mountains. Basically, from June till November, it hasn't rained significantly. Maybe 1 or 2 thunderstorms, and that's it. And well, on the one hand, it's normal for this climate to have a long summer drought. Yeah, you can see all the olives over there that require actually this heat, summer heat, to grow. But the last 2 years they were extreme. They were really extreme. Actually, a weather station not so far from here, and over in that direction on the coast, it got 320 millimeters of rain in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, and normally it gets like 800 millimeters. So it's incredible, the difference. And I firmly believe that it's mostly this climate change, or at least without calling it climate change, the drought, that has been a driving factor in the decline of chestnut trees, chestnut orchards in Corsica. And it's actually really sad to see, because well, it's not so clear to see, I think, on the camera, but basically that other slope there where you see the house, that whole region, it looks like it's winter, like there are no or almost no leaves on the trees. And those are actually mostly chestnut trees that you see there. There are still some living chestnut trees, but with a thinned out canopy and lots of dead trees. And this is basically everywhere. It's really sad to see. And in a few years' time, most of the chestnut trees, they will be dead. They will be gone. Um, and what's quite fascinating is that in northern Europe, the chestnut tree is starting to grow very well, which is in part due to the warmer climate, because the chestnut tree does require some summer heat to grow well. And so yeah, I actually believe we are seeing the effects of climate change, and we are seeing, and we can use the chestnut tree as an indicator species for this, because like back in the days 100 years ago, the chestnut tree, it grew fairly extensively, meaning without a lot of care, often without irrigation, and those days are mostly over. Like in most Mediterranean contexts, you can maybe get one good harvest every 4 years or so, because it has rained sufficiently. But in most places, this is of course a model that can't be sustained, so irrigation has to be implemented everywhere. And what's quite interesting is that in northern European countries like the Netherlands, suddenly summers are warm enough to basically to enable chestnut trees to thrive, maybe. Yeah, I think you could say that, because chestnut trees, they are not really Mediterranean species like those olive trees over there. They do require some some rain, actually quite some rain, mostly in August, not so much June and July, because in June and July they actually use the water reserves from winter and spring. They're still available underground. But if it doesn't rain in August, that's what they say here in Corsica, then the chestnuts will be very small. And I can confirm this from the last 2 years, where I harvested chestnuts with a professional chestnut farmer. So he has a really nicely maintained orchard, and the chestnuts, they were small like hazelnuts, and normally they are much bigger. Yes, and let me show you. Let me pause this for 1 sec. Yes, I'm back. So up there you see a lot of dead trees. Those are almost all chestnut trees. You see they are quite big, actually. Some of them, they have lived for probably a few centuries. Well, not this small one, but those big guys over there. And now they're all dead. And what you see also is that what we call the maquis, the shrub vegetation that's native here in Corsica, it takes over. So you have a lot of holm oak and other shrubs and trees that basically they basically come into the system and take the place of the chestnuts. This also shows that it's not just drought, because if it's just drought, those trees also would suffer a lot. So it's a combination of drought plus the diseases that have had a huge impact. And I want to show you from closer how those trees look like, because it's pretty sad to see. Like this guy over here, it's quite okay, you see. The leaves, especially there, they are very big. This is a very good sign, because during the gall wasp manifestation a few years ago, they were very small. But you can see the top chestnuts, they are pretty, the top chestnut leaves, they are much smaller, and it looks a bit empty, the canopy, which is also a sign of a disease. Very often it's either ing disease or chestnut blight. And here you can see a dead chestnut. I know, actually I think part of it is alive, like this branch over there is still alive, but you know, it's just a question of time. Oh yeah, look, this guy is alive but suffering. You see the top, it's very empty. And over there we have another chestnut tree, one dead branch there, and then some that are probably living their last year, one of the last years. And this is so sad to see, and it's everywhere in Corsica. At least almost everywhere where, let's say everywhere where the chestnut trees are not managed, because in a professional chestnut orchard, this understory is cleared, and so there's more water available, and this might help the chestnuts a little bit more. But I have to admit that in some of the chestnut orchards I visited, there's also a lot of damage, and I think most of those trees, they are also dying. So not a very positive message, but I wanted to share with you some of those problems that we face here in Corsica, and I think, well, I know in most of the Mediterranean, which is both an indicator of globalization, because all those diseases they've come here by transport. Most of the diseases they came from Asia, for example. So this is a huge problem. Exotic species, they are costing, I think, our world several hundreds of billions of euros, I believe, if I read that article a week ago correctly. And also the climate, the changing climate, and especially the summer droughts that are having another impact. That basically the chestnut trees, they have to take another hit. So yeah, that's where we are here in Corsica right now with the chestnuts. Not so very positive. This year there might be quite a good harvest of chestnuts because it has rained a lot until June. The problem is that it hasn't really rained afterwards, not so much. Maybe in certain places, I think in the west a little bit more than here in the east. But here on the east side there's almost no, we've had almost no rain. So I am afraid that most of the chestnuts will be small like hazelnuts. We'll see. I'll keep you posted.